Mick Cairney is the General Manager of Western Operations, Centennial Coal. Mick is also a competency examiner, and he will speak with us this morning about why so many fail their competency tickets, at least at their first attempt. Mick, would you like to come up to the front? Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank the Mine Safety Advisory Council for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm very passionate about good management. Good management really delivers good key outcomes across the business, as we all know, including safety outcomes. So I suppose what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about a few little stories and tell you a few little anecdotes to how I form my opinions on the management process and the ANTS system. I think ANTS in itself is part of the management process, of course, and how we link that to a statutory framework, and then talk about how we manage that into the coal competencies for the under managers, and also just touch on a bit of research which I've done over the years, which has convinced me even further that the ANTS system is very important. Coal miners. I love some of those photos. Notice only the women are smiling for some reason. Come on, boys, lighten up a bit. But that's a great photo. That I got these off Google. There's about 10,000 photos of coal miners on there. I just took a bit of a collage of that, and it's a great smiley photo of that lady. But unfortunately, she doesn't look like she was wearing some respiration for dust. Most of the people I started my career with were generally in that sort of a genre. Those sort of guys up here. And I just find it interesting if I went up to this fella up here and said, "Excuse me, would you like to learn some soft skills?" And I think that wouldn't gel. Excuse me. Because at the end of the day, influencing people underground in hazardous environments, etc., is really not a soft skill. And so maybe that's something to think about down the track. I was a deputy when I was 23 years old. I rang the manager up when I got my deputy's ticket. I went through the process. And I says, "Can I have a job?" He said, "Yeah, start Monday." I had a 6-week induction or so. My first assignment was full pillar extraction with 5 clean skins who had 6 weeks induction. One fellow would turn up drunk every night because we didn't manage those things very well in those days. A really good quality miner driver who was a great mentor to me. And one day he was in the lift and he was lifting off, and without going into the reasons, the roof fell in, chased us all out except for the miner driver. There was the miner driver. I couldn't see him because I had a canopy on the roof of the miner, but it was covered. The miner was covered, and I thought he was gone. And I was there by myself. And then I heard the miner tram into high gear and backed out, and he just squeezed himself out. And he said to me, "Come on, Mick, we better go and get some props and fix this. You know, what would happen if it happened today?" And I looked for my other 5 clean skin guys, and they were 100 metres away, and they said, "We're not going down there, Mick. We're not going down there." And I can understand that. And I look back, and I was 23 years old at the time, and I'm thinking, this is an experience. Later on down the track, I was probably 5 or 6 years later, I was at another mine with a very gung-ho crew. And there was an underperformer in the crew. And so everybody kept complaining to me about this guy, underperformer. Let's improve his performance, let's improve his performance. They weren't saying it in those terms, of course. So anyway, in my way of trying to get this guy on board and improve, I used what I thought was the right method. And while I was standing around the mine, one day he grabbed a 4-foot drill steel and threatened to smack me in the head with it. And there we were, him like this and me like this in no man's land. And I thought to myself, my feedback system and management strategy is not working. So we should just live and learn, because I was highly technically trained, of course. Then I became an under-manager. The mine was in chaos at the time. It was one of the most unpleasant experiences of my life. And I thought, if this is the nature of management, the nature of work, I don't want any part of it. It caused a huge amount of stress. And so I said, I'm going to go out and find out what this is all about, and did my BA in psychology and sociology, focused on working in groups, etc., etc. The learnings I had there about how people work in groups and how things operate significantly changed the way I think about management and how I think things should operate. So it was very interesting experiences. So now to the under-managers. What we do is we give the under-managers briefing sessions before they sit their exams now. We try and take the mystique out of it all. Very well supported by the Coal Competence Board. We say to the guys, look guys, don't whinge about legislation and the regulations. You vote. The Parliament decides what's going to be the legislation and the regulations through consultation with the community, so you're part of it, accept it and get on with it. The next thing is it's all about risk management, and we know how to do that, and we're all technically trained in that. But at the end of the day, the people, the ticket they're going for is called an under-manager's ticket, and what we try and put into that system is that you are an under-manager, but the manager is the key word, not the under. So what we try and do is to put that in the context of a management model into the statutory framework, if we find that useful. The management model we adopt is quite a simple one: Plan, Do, Check, Act. Any business school will take you through that. It's quite simple. And what we've been able to do is to align that with the statutory framework. Thanks to Dave Nichols here in the department, this was very well put forward. Over the years, it's become part of culture without being regulated. But if you have a look, you can see that there's 5 on this page and 5 on the next. In the left-hand column, it's pretty hard to read. There's what we call the 10 hurdles. These are requirements under workplace health and safety legislation. There's the hurdle, the jump that you have to do for safe work practices, consultation, hazard identification, risk assessment, risk management, etc. There's a sample question, the legislative support. But on the end, we've put in there, so listen guys, if you do consultation, hazard identification and risk assessment, etc., that's part of the planning process. When you do your risk management, put your risk controls in place, that's your doing, that's part of the doing process. The information provision. The next 5 hurdles: instruction and training, supervision, monitoring, reviewing, revising. Still part of the doing process, and then there's a checking process, and then there's the act process. So what we try and do to people is actually, you are a manager at the end of the day. You're not a technically trained person who goes in and picks little pieces ad hoc. You have to look at the whole process and convince us that you will operate like that in any situation. The other thing we teach people, or ask people to provide and show us their competence, is that there's also the Plan, Do, Check, Act and Organise processes, but sometimes there are out-of-control processes. Sometimes you're really there for your expertise to manage unplanned events. So what we want to see from people... Thanks very much. That would be very ugly, wouldn't it? So what we also ask people to show us is to regain, how you can regain control, and then create a planned event, and how you would recommission at the end of that process. And what I'm saying here is that each one of these processes has a very, very significant opportunity for ANTS processes to be installed and implemented in it. For example, if you were going to develop an ANTS management model, you would look at the hurdles, as we spoke about a minute ago, on the left-hand side. An unplanned event, okay, the action is regain control. What are the ANTS systems that would fit in with that? Which human behaviour, in a crisis situation, does someone need to be educated in to manage an unplanned event? Consultation, for example. When you're putting a plan together, we can put a structured plan together and use Microsoft projects, etc. But what are the issues that you would find that when you're putting a plan together in consultation with other people? Groupthink, shouldn't people be understand to identify that? As far as risk management, is there influencing issues there? And especially in supervision, instruction and training, etc. You need to look at how do you influence people, give a proper feedback, not like I had with the fellow with the drill steel. I'd rather get a better response and things like that. So if you had an ANTS model, we've got a statutory model that fits in with a management model. Why can't the ANTS model fit in with that? A little bit about some of Centennial's approach to people behavioural training at some of the ANTS systems. We did a 3-day course for all supervisors with the consultants in the room here, actually. 1-day course for all employees. What a huge commitment for a company to do that. And it focused on intervention for unsafe acts, which how people can intervene, and that soft skill to tell people to stop. What is the human cost of unsafe practices? The ABC of learning. Open discussion, just like in here today. This training was probably the most highly regarded training that I've ever seen in my career. People love being able to, what they used to call in the old days, man management. They love to be able to say that I can influence people and I understand how people are and I can make a difference. People really appreciate that, and it's such a significant part of management. So it was a very successful thing, and it lowered our TRIFR and LTIFR to below the industry underground average, and we're still improving, so it was a great result. They're stressed people. This is what happens. This is about some research now. I just want to talk about some research, and it follows into what some of the ANTS principles itself. Part of my psychology degree, etc., or major in psychology and sociology, we started to investigate why people are unhappy at work. And if you mention what I mentioned to you when I was an under manager at that mine, why was it so stressful? So I did some research into this process. I think those looks on those cartoons' faces is exactly what the people are thinking. They mightn't show it on the outside, but they definitely show it on the inside when an organisation is under stress. Also, people will not perform and do the right thing when they're stressed at work because they come to work, they hate it, they don't want to get out of bed. They don't respect management, they don't respect supervision, they don't respect the needs of management or the requests of management. Research will show that workplace stress totally defeats organisational commitment. Now, when you want to implement safety underground or to any place, you need commitment in the organisation. Workplace stress also ruins positive workplace culture. And the 6 main stressors in that, and there's plenty of research around will show that, is uncertainty, lack of role clarity, lack of input, lack of feedback, lack of resources, and lack of reward recognition. And so some of the ANTS systems themselves, with giving people certainty, give them feedback and getting involved, those skills that you can work with people and give feedback, and instead of getting the drill style, have people accept that feedback. It's very important. Reduce stress in the workplace, you'll have committed people and a positive culture. Another bit of research, I said, well, okay, how can I convince myself that this is right? So I did a major statistical review of 3 mines over 6 years with 16 mining variables, 14,000 data points and a regression analysis to try and determine what percentage of the concrete things contribute to productivity in tonnes per unit shift, because that'd be handy. We had a good database, so, you know, is it the number of machines, the type of roof support, the thickness of the seam, the number of overtime hours worked, etc., etc. So the statistically significant variables come out and predicted a certain percentage of productivity in tonnes per unit shift. Anybody guess what that was? If you think you had every engineering input into a mining process, did the appropriate analysis, how much would those variables predict tonnes per unit shift? Anybody got a guess? %45. About half. So all the engineering inputs we put in said we can only predict half of your output from that. So the question is, what predicts the other half? Culture, commitment, human interface, ANTS, how we can influence people, the will to make it happen. In my view, that sort of confirmed to me that it's not all just about the technical, is it? So it's very important. So I'm pretty well on time going along. So finally, just to cap off, the statutory framework is the minimum standard which under managers have to operate and convince the board, the panel, that they can operate in New South Wales coal mines. The statutory framework can be put in simply into a simple 10-hurdle plan, do, check, act model. And I'd really love if the candidates, when they come out of their technical training at university or TAFE or wherever it was, to also, in that plan, do, check, act model, with the 10 hurdles of consultation, risk assessment, etc., would also come out with the appropriate ANTS processes and management processes that would fit in with that management model. To me, that would be a great start, and a great start for the industry. As we know now, we bring consultants in after the fact. That's a good thing to do, to top up, if that's what you choose to do. But at the end of the day, people should come out of the primary educational facilities with that full-rounded management education. There's a picture of a couple of our good fellows. And that's it. Thanks very much.